So we've already tackled here the different skills we need to be future-ready learners. Exactly how do you think we can develop these skills? So do you think are the avenues where we can develop communication, critical thinking, and leadership?
So you mentioned kanina, Bianca, no, na it's good that there are sometimes it's a matter of luck that you happen to be assigned to a teacher who already knows these skills. Yes. So I remember when I was in high school, si Mrs. Saez, yung aking science teacher, she was good in doing it, but I didn't have a lot of teachers who were also able to insert that from time to time because they were more focused on their module. So this is where papasok ang concept of self-learning, right? And the concept of self-learning is where you tell to yourself, if these things are not taught to me proactively, I have to initiate from my own hustle, my own efforts on how to do that. I need to say this because I think the generation today is way, way lucky because at the click of a button, you can find all of these modules and courses. Either they're for free or they're only bite-sized information you can digest in 1 hour. You can go to YouTube, you can go to LinkedIn, etc. I need to say this, nung bata ako, when I was in high school and college, we didn't have all of these things. When I was in college, naabutan ko pa ang dial-up internet, wherein it can take you 1 hour to download a simple photo. Right? Naabutan mo ba yun?
Sound effects yan, diba?
Yes. But I think, Bianca, in your case, hindi mo na naabutan yun. Naabutan po ba yun?
Naabutan ko.
So, okay.
You can use the phone.
Yes.
It tries to make a call.
Yes. Yeah, so hindi pwede magsabay, for example, ang phone call at yung internet.
You need to take turns. Samantalang yun, it seems like in some households, every family member has their own device. And they can access this information, all these resources simultaneously. Yes. And
yet now, even without a laptop, using your smartphone, you can already download all of these online courses. So ako, and I've seen this a lot. During the pandemic, if you've noticed, naging viral yung mga ibang tao na as much as they can, they would take all the courses, all the certificates that they can get. Can I also emphasize this? Don't just do certificates and courses because these are all theoretical learning. Make sure you also apply them afterwards, right? So after you finished a course, kahit wala kang i-present to a certain person, gawa ka ng slides mo. Try it out on your own and see for yourself if honestly you actually like what you did, right? Ako, what I would do is I would ask one of my best friends and say, hey, can I show to you a 3 PowerPoint slide deck? Tell me what your thoughts are and be honest and brutal about it and what I can further do about it, right? Yung iba, very lucky because if you have an internship as early as now in your 2nd or 3rd year, you get to apply those immediately. So when you're able to apply them before you even graduate, ang dami na agad na bagong information makukuha mo because everyone will give you a critique on how you do.
That's great to hear. So I like that you mentioned it's important to be open to that critique. So it's not just showing the learning, but also having people give feedback. I think that's also very useful for our learners today. Okay, so for those learners who were wondering, okay, we have these skills, how do we apply them and how do we use them in the real world? Now you have the answer. Self-learning is key, as mentioned by Sir Jonathan. And of course, not just learning on yourself or even getting some of the insights from our previous series, taking charge of your own learning, maximizing the opportunities. You need to find ways to apply those as well. We have a question here, I believe, from Jigen. Would you like to maybe share what school you're representing and your question for Sir John?
Good afternoon. I'm Jigen Castro Vicentuan. I'm from Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Valenzuela. I just want to ask, can you give us tips or tools on how we can ensure that we have the proper skill set that we needed for the future?
Thank you, Jigen. I think what you're referring to is being able to evaluate whether you're on the right track. So before I answer that question, I'm going to introduce one quick concept lang, and it's called the reference bias. So the reference bias in psychology is where you often think that you're good because you're only comparing yourself to the people who are conveniently around you. Right? So for example, akala mong gwapo-gwapo mo, hindi ka kasi lumalabas ng bahay. Because your point of comparison is only perhaps the people around you. Akala mo magaling ka mag-basketball because you're the MVP of your barangay, but the moment I put you into the NBA or to the PBA, you're just a nobody, right? So part of learning is also evaluating. And part of evaluation is to comparing how you are performing also versus others. Kaya it's a tricky water because comparing cannot always be a good thing because you might feel insensitive or insecure about yourself. But when I say evaluating yourself, always aim for the highest standards by identifying what those standards are. So for example ako, balik ako sa PowerPoint ha, para lang madali yung ating example. When I find ways to improve my ability to do PowerPoint, I'm always obsessed in attending meetings na kahit hindi ako imbitado, I will say, pwede ba ako mag-sit in? Gusto ko lang makita paano siya mag-present. And if it's okay for them that I sit in, I will sit in because I want to see how that person presents. Down to their templates, their choice of colors, paano sila mag-handle ng Q&A? Do they answer the questions in the middle or do they handle it at the end of the presentation, for example? And then I compare that to how I do it. And then I compare it again to another person that I sit in for in another meeting. And then I collect and select. And I do that repeatedly day in and day out until I finally tell to myself, of all these things that I've gathered, I think these are the best practices that will work out for me based on my personality, and then I will apply it. And then, trial and error ulit. Doon sa mga nakuha ko, sa mga in-apply ko, which one worked out, which one ang hindi benta sa audience, and then I filter and select which ones really do well for me. So this is not only applicable in PowerPoint presentations, this is also applicable, for example, in leadership. It's applicable in selling. It's applicable also in, if you happen to, let's say, work for a BPO, if you happen to work for, if you become an entrepreneur or gagawa ka ng isang software, most things in life are trial and error, right? You don't get it right once. If either you do it that way, you're either called a genius or naswertehan mo lang. But most of us get it only right on the second or third or fourth attempt. So that continuous learning is part of being able to compare yourself versus others. Because here's the catch, guys. Unlike in school, ang measurement lagi, if you're able to do it right, is the score. If you got it perfect score of 100, you got it right. Kapag pumasa ka hanggang score of 85 or 75, you got it right. When you enter the corporate world, you're not going to be evaluated in terms of numbers all the time, right? When you pitched a product to a client, it's not like the client will say, oh sige, bibili ako ng produkto mo because you got an 8 out of 10. They're not going to say that to you. The only measure is, did they buy it or not? Right? And so the part of evaluation is to be able to compare. And part of comparing is being observant with how other people do it and being the most absorbent sponge that you can always learn from a person, even if they're way better than you and you feel insecure also about that.